Operation don't have a data problem. Most of them have an execution problem. You have people working on the wrong priority. This is where things start to become problematic.
For 20 years, we've been working with some mining companies to make sure that they are making the best decisions and things don't fall through the cracks.
This is how you get firefighting mode out of the equation.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Mining Now. We've got another episode filmed at CIM Connect in Vancouver. We've got Craig Banks, COO, Jean-Philippe Bouchard, Chief Sales Officer, and Eli Alston, VP of Product. There was a little bit of a discussion on the name of the company.
Well, first, thanks for having us on the show.
Of course.
We're really happy
Welcome.
to be here. It is Dingo, but the company's Dingo Software. We have software, but what we were discussing is it's actually a lot more than software.
Right.
I think we're going to talk about that quite a lot in the show today. So think of it as Dingo. It is software. It's a solution. It's got service element to it. So yeah.
Let's start with we'll start with you. What's your day-to-day with the company? Your role?
Sure. My day-to-day is the head of product. So I'm responsible for defining the product vision and the strategy, and managing the product management team overall.
JP?
Yeah, I spearhead the business development. For us, what's super important is the fact that we have a clear understanding of how we fit with the customer needs. So the problems they're trying to solve that are worth solving, and make sure that Dingo is a fit for them. So, yeah.
And Craig?
Yeah, and as COO at Dingo, I'm kind of a jack of all trades. I move around and try and fill gaps where needed. Sometimes I'm involved with sales with JP. Sometimes I'm working on the product with Eli. But generally speaking, making sure that we're satisfying our customers, delivering value on what we're selling, and paying attention to what the market wants from Dingo next.
I want to get some background on Dingo. I'm going to go on a limb and assume Dingo is an Australian company. If not, it's a very confusing
good assumption.
name.
Yeah, good assumption.
Yeah. So a little bit about the backstory.
Well, look, Dingo's been around a long time, and that's maybe not commonly known, but we've been in business for 30 years, and for a technology company to have lasted that long is quite something. We were founded 30 years ago, and our founder's still involved in the business now today. Founded 30 years ago, and under kind of a consistent but simple problem, which is that even with oil data, which is really all they had 30 years ago to make inference and understand what was going on with mining equipment, that data would sit with select few individuals on a mine site, and they often wouldn't have access to the data. Having a clear view, a clear and concise view of what was going on with your fleet, with assets, which ones were more at risk and less at risk, that was problematic even with the emergence of oil data. And so what we did, and what Paul, the founder, did, is he put together a software solution that involved bringing together silos, consolidating data for the reliability analysts and the maintenance teams to really understand and get a clear picture of what's going on with their equipment, and then take that and build a process for decision-making into the software so that decisions were made consistently and things didn't fall through the cracks. Now, if you fast forward today, that problem that's the core problem we solve is consolidation of data and really formalizing decision-making on a mine site. That's still a problem today. We have a lot more data. We have telemetry data. We have ERPs with a ton of rich data, got digitalized inspections, oil data. All of this needs to come together so that there's a single clear view that really the best decisions can be made for maintenance of the fleets across mines around the world.
What is the big challenge that most operations are running into?
Certainly, operation don't have a data problem, okay? Most of them have, I would say, an execution problem. There's no shortage of signal today. Like, there are tons of fluid analysis report, vibration reports, onboard telemetry
on any
information.
Given mine.
Yeah. And it'll vary, but any mine that has basic maintenance practice will at least do fluid analysis and visual inspection. They might not have telemetry on all their fleet and all that, but in general that's what we'll see, and on its own none of that creates value. Having the data doesn't create the value. What we see consistently is that issues are detected, email are sent, alarms are ringing in the control room, but stuff are not acted on time, and very often not properly prioritized. And what that means is that you have people working on the wrong priority, and we all know what that means, right? We all have an endless backlog of stuff to do. I do, you do. Like the mine maintenance has like an endless backlog. If people are not working on the right priority, this is where things start to become problematic and hectic.
Okay, so I was asked a very simple question: where does Dingo step in to help? Are you helping prioritize those needs, those maintenance needs?
Yeah, 100%. We, as part of what the solution does is that we will interface with the various data source. We will centralize, automate that centralization of the data. Provide some holistic analysis, and through the process that we will discuss, we will really eliminate the noise and make sure that what comes out through the digital tool and the human in the loop is actually noise free, so that when it reaches the customer's inbox, it is like properly prioritized with clear actions to be done, and people can essentially trust that the system recommendations are valid and to be acted on. What does the result look like? One of our gold mine in the underground mine in Canada, we've seen $1.8 million in cost avoidance and up to $2.3 million in component life extension. Nearly $4 million in savings / cost avoidance over a 2.5-year period. So 1.5 million-ish, kind of return on their investment per year, and that represent like almost like a 3 or 4 to 1 ROI ratio in their European asset where it's an open pit mine. And we're not talking big fleet, like under 50 equipment. Nearly like $2 million in cost avoidance for breakdown that we capture early enough, and nearly $3 million in component life extension.
How much? I'll ask a couple questions. I don't know if you'll be privy to it, but I mean, how many of your? I mean, some mines are lasting. Are there legacy clients that have been with you and have sort of followed the evolution? I'm sure the evolution has been staggering as technology has developed within Dingo, and then of course that's transferred to your clients. Are there legacy clients that are still with Dingo today?
Yeah, I mean, great question. We have our client base is some of the biggest mining companies in the world. We also have small individual remote mine sites. It's quite a broad spectrum of clients. But within that, again, in 30 years, we've had the privilege of working with some excellent clients for over 2 decades. And I think if there's one takeaway from having had clients as long as 2 decades, it's a long time. You learn a lot about each other as you get through that. If there's one thing that kind of takeaway for me is that reinforces the value that Dingo creates, and the value of consolidated data and formalized decision making about asset health. Okay, so and for 20 years we've been working with some mining companies to make sure that they are making the best decisions and things don't fall through the cracks, that their equipment operates as optimally as possible.
I was just curious. You said the founder's name is Paul?
That's right.
Right. Is he? What was his background? Do you know much about him?
Yeah, I do. I mean, we all know Paul quite well. He's a mining engineer. Spent his time cutting his teeth in the industry. Spent some time in oil, gas, and in consulting as well. But this is going back a long time. As a mining engineer, he was privy to all these problems. He was surprised that oil data could be sitting over here, yet the decision makers are over here not seeing a clear picture of what's going on. And a piece of equipment would break down unexpectedly, and that still happens today.
Right.
Parts wouldn't last as long as expected. That still happens today, right? So he had, because of his mining engineering background, he was privy to those problems on a first-hand basis.
And that's exactly what I was wondering. So he came out of the mining world and was able to develop a solution that actually fit. Because it always seems like it'd be a challenge if you came outside. You got, hey, this amazing software, but I mean, we've tried to do it with onboarding software that doesn't fit with our operations, and it is, if it doesn't kind of built around your industry, it can be very challenging.
Subject matter expertise is a core to everything we're going to talk about, right?
Yeah.
And there's a number of, especially with the emergence of AI, there's a number of software-specific solutions that try and solve asset health. But ultimately, you're still trying to communicate to somebody with a wrench in a workshop, or to a supervisor sitting in an office that might be offline, right? And so the importance of having a person who can credibly communicate what's going on with your asset health fleet and get actionability from it, that's underappreciated, I think, and it's certainly something we really focus on at Dingo and have since day one.
Well, JP, we're going to bring you in now. We're going to talk about problems. How do you solve them? How you're even framing it to start. If you're with a legacy client, like we're discussing already, you're sort of building it out with them. You're learning about them. But I'm very interested in a new client. Then they're coming to you with their, I would imagine, a set of consistent problems that everybody has, paired with a set of unique problems to them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I think what we've learned with the 120 customer we have globally is actually that there is a lot of commonality in the problem risk that they're observing in the mine site. Even though each mine site is very unique, there are really common grounds when it comes to the problem we solve for them. So I would say that most of the time when we engage with customers, like we already have a pretty good idea of what they're suffering, depending on their maturity, whether they're they have very, I'm going to say, immature. They're a lot from a maintenance perspective in a firefighting mode. So trying to, keep up with production that needs equipment available and all that. Whereas you have at the other extreme of the spectrum, you've got those really mature customer that almost over-maintain some of the equipment. So depending where they are in the spectrum, we already know what sort of challenge they're already going through. And I think that's what kind of brings our credibility, like when as soon as we start engaging with the customer, the fact that we can talk to their reality and without having, spoke to their team, have a sense of, okay, like these are the things that we would suspect based on what you told us you're being challenged with. And that's it, the fact that there's like 15 to 20 problem that we know we can solve for the maintenance and reliability people. We've got known solution processes and ways to actually make a different result for them, and that's how it all starts. Solving those problems that need to be solved.
I'll try to ask this question in a way that makes sense. I know sometimes I'm in a management position, so sometimes I go in, even to my own team, and I've got a thing in my head that I think is maybe the problem, and I kind of already think I know the solution. And then it's a lot of sort of like almost getting rid of the myths that are in my own head to get to the core of what actually needs to happen. And then sometimes, our head of production, Gowdy, will say, oh, no, we just do it this way. And I go, oh, never mind. That's way easier than I thought it was. What is the start of the process? When you're starting to talk to a client, how do you start to gather in their information and bring to what you have to the table, but also field what they're trying to tell you?
Yeah, interestingly enough, for us it all starts with discovery, like exploration. And as I said, we've already got a sense of the things that might be problematic for the customer. Because we've been in the industry for so long, and we understand commonality that of what the challenge might look like. It's also interestingly not the way the customer are used to buy. So very often we come into the meetings, and customer expect that they will see a solution demo or presentation, and we actually kind of pause there, and it's like, we don't want to waste people's time with, presenting all sorts of stuff if we don't have a clear understanding of the problem, the risk they might have, or the opportunity we might create for them. So once we have this, it's also a lot easier to create a bit of a tailor presentation and something that aligns, that will talk a lot more to them and to how we can solve those challenges.
Well, and to doubly help them understand their problem potentially better than they already know, right? So it's to uncover more about the problems they think they have.
Yeah.
Till we get to the core, and then we can come back with it.
And also let them understand that other people have been through similar challenge, and we've helped them create a different result. And I think this is where we rapidly get engagement and people to say, you know what? Okay, I want to bring in that person. I want him to tell you about this and that, and what data do you need? What information do you need from us? And it becomes very collaborative quickly, and this is why, most of our customers become partner very quickly.
I want to circle back to some specifics, but I got to bring you in here at this point because the AI discussion. I mean, it comes up pretty much every episode now.
I'm sure.
How much? I'm going to ask a big question right off the bat.
Sure.
How much is AI going to change predictive maintenance. I mean, I would imagine you're going to have more data points, hopefully less noise. We hear a lot, we're talking to a lot of like the control companies, the sensor companies. There is a lot of data flying around now on these mine sites. Is AI going to be able to sift through that? How does Dingo approach it?
Well, AI is even bigger than what you're alluding to here.
Right.
Right. AI in the mining industry has been around for a couple decades in the form of machine learning, data science, and so forth. And the mining industry, the tier one players, have dedicated mining data science teams that have been looking to predictive elements for quite some time around condition data. What's happened now, though, with the advancement of large language models and reasoning models, is we're in an era where software as we know it is changing. How we deliver solutions is changing. And that's really what's super interesting. And for us at Dingo, we look at that as such a great opportunity. We're an agile and quite dynamic organization, and the advancements in AI are going to allow us to deliver more and more capability to our customers and deliver true maintenance outcomes to them faster and in ways that nobody's been able to do today.
Right. JP, I want to bring you back in now on this side, because I would imagine then, as your existing clients, new clients, there must be, maybe anybody who wants to jump in on this, how do it must sort of shift the way you approach setting up the foundation of their essentially their programs now, because if AI is coming, you need to make sure that infrastructure is set up right. Or am I off in that? That's just a genuine question.
What's unique again about Dingo is the fact that we centralize the asset health data from your oil, your telemetry, the visual inspection, the vibration, etc. But we also interface with the ERP so that the data, once analyzed and that have created a recommendation, actually create an action. And the only way to trigger an action for a mine is to interface really through the ERP and CMMS. So when you've got all of this rich data, 30 years of data, of condition, health data, and maintenance activity, breakdown logs, this is the key ingredients, I guess, for a team of engineers and experts to analyze and build, what does the problematic pattern for this type of failure mode looks like. And that's another way to leverage AI, is to really bring that rich data together, identify what is the problematic pattern, what is the consequence, and have the link between the two, and being able to continuously looking at our customer data and extrapolate, okay, like this is where you are, this is what the pattern looks like, this is what the system recommends you do based on the historical. And another interesting point is that for instance, we'll go to a customer site where they've got, a fleet of production of, 50, 60, 70 equipment. They will have, let's say, 20 equipment of Model X. So a Caterpillar 785 or a Sandvik TH545. Yeah. In general, we will have 10 to 100 times that amount of equipment we are following globally. And that data obviously is enriching what the customer will get from, what good looks like and what a problem, an early problem that can be detected will look like. And this is another way that AI, I think, will come and really enable us to generate value with the customer.
Okay, so this kind of brings me back to my question earlier then. If you're setting up a program now and that's coming, do you just basically have to wait till that level of AI is available to even start to work on that, or can you lay the groundwork now at a site? If that makes sense.
We're actually and actually it's kind of a myth for a lot of our customers. They think that to be able to do condition-based maintenance or predictive maintenance, they need intelligent machine, they need AI tools, and they need to bring in those fancy solution. We are leveraging AI to make ourselves more efficient, to make our customer more efficient. But at the end of the day, the entry, I'm gonna say the bar to enter into doing condition-based maintenance is pretty low, in the sense that if you've got fluid analysis and you're doing visual inspection, even though you're a mature or immature customer, we can essentially help customer like move the throttle and really get different results. So I just want to say that
Yeah.
AI is to me is an enabler for efficiency, for gaining from the lesson learned elsewhere, but this is not needed to generate value today. And I think it's important to clarify that.
I wanted to ask something else. Again, some of these questions, because it's sort of new to me as well, so I'm stumbling around a little bit. But I think probably people watching would have some of the similar ones. So when you're going onto a site, are you creating benchmarks specific to that company's sort of maintenance demands? Or are you saying this is when you maintain this vehicle, but maybe their environment might be different for their haul truck might be different than another haul truck. So do you have to sort of create a foundation specific to their site, even though you've got all this other data from other sites?
100%.
Okay.
100%. So the way we operate is even though we've got, let's use the example of the fleet I was talking earlier. So let's say a customer has 20 truck model XYZ, and they've got like a 2, 3, or 5 year historical of asset health data. This to us is the primary source of data we will utilize. And the reason why is because every mine is unique. You might have mines that haul downhill loaded, uphill loaded. You might have mines that are all on the level. You might have mines that have a lot of contaminant, external contaminant, etc. So the reality of the mine is actually has got a signature in all the asset health data, whether it's fluid analysis, it's telemetry, it's what's observed during an inspection. And this is the first entry point. And just from that data, we can already establish statistically what normal looks like for this mine, right? And that gives us a first, let's say, foundational set of threshold, like of what, where the limits should be for that site, for that specific machine in that site. Now, what we will do is we will compare with the global benchmark what this compares to, so we can understand what's the upside, for instance. So if a customer we come in is achieving, I don't know, like 10,000 hours in average for an engine with the equipment model X, and obviously we see that other customers globally are obtaining 14, 16, 20,000 hours. Well, that for us is the upside and what we want the customer to aim for. Very often the customer are not aware of that, and they don't have the ability to say, okay, you know what, like we have the opportunity to go for more on that. So the benchmark data becomes a reference that is trustable and that we can utilize, but the site data is what really allows us to set the baseline, and that's kind of how we build a foundation. We set a baseline. This is where we are, and we've got all those external reference we can utilize when we need to
for best practices,
for best practice, for lessons learned, etc.
When I'm listening to you and Eli talk, Craig, one of the things going sort of circling back to the beginning is JP, I think you said 120 operating mines or clients?
Sites globally. Yep.
Yeah. When you're having conversations and you're growing the business, how often do you run into people that actually don't understand what is possible from a company like Dingo? Do people, it's been around for 30 years, but I imagine if you went and talked to 30 people in that room, you could probably fill them in with a lot of information that they wouldn't realize.
Yeah, I don't think the industry realizes what the opportunity is to leverage data. The most common complaint I think you were talking about earlier that we hear is I've got all this data, I don't know what to do with it all, or there's just so much noise in this and that. And so to look for signal and bring insight forward from that is kind of, it's not revolutionary. It makes perfect sense to want to do that, but we don't find many mines have succeeded in doing that. Certainly to where they could be achieving. And so I think there's what maybe the mining industry, generally speaking, doesn't know is what the upside opportunity of condition-based and predictive maintenance looks like. What the outcome of successfully deploying technology looks like. Let's be honest, there's a lot of technologies that haven't worked out for a lot of the mining companies out there.
Which is another important thing to touch
totally,
on and be aware of, that there's a lot of, there's been a lot that have come online that people have struggled to onboard.
Yep. And so we have to navigate that with our clients too. It's like, well, no, it's different, and here's why, and here's the experience we can share, and the benchmarking is a big part of that. Do you know what I mean? Like, you're going to say something?
Yeah, I actually want to add a bit to this because I've been in the mining industry for nearly 25 years. Been with equipment manufacturer and technology provider, and we've seen a lot of technology land in the technology graveyard. And prior to me joining, when I interviewed the owner, I actually was questioning him and quizzing him about what value are you generating, and I knew it was generating value because, as we spoke in the beginning of the podcast here, like, we got customers that have been with us 25 years, and we're a SaaS model. So every year or 2 year, you get to decide if you renew with us. It's like when you've been in business with someone for 25 years, you got to be doing something that's generating value enough for the customer to say, yeah, like we're carrying on. And for a lot of our customers, we're literally part of their maintenance and reliability DNA. But where I'm going with that is the fact that customers are actually not necessarily understanding the value that can be generated with the data they have today, and what's missing for technology to work. And I think this is what Paul and the Dingo team has found out over the years, is that it's not only about the technology. And there's kind of 3 pillars of the solution. That's why we're debating, is it a software, is it a solution?
Yeah.
To me, it's a solution, because the solution includes 3 pillars. You've got the digital tool, which Eli and the technology team is developing. You've got the human in the loop. This is the reliability expert. So we've got, when we sell a digital solution, we sell it with an expert, a reliability and maintenance expert. Our team averaged 20 plus years in the maintenance. So, they know what good looks like. They know what data looks like. They know what a broken process looks like. They know what people needs to be involved. There's reliability, there's planning team, there's an execution team. And the solution, that expert, and the processes that we've put in place are the difference between a solution that fails and a solution that consistently deliver a solution year after year. So what we see is very often is that a customer embarks with us, they sign a 12-month agreement, and within a few months, they can already see all the leading indicators. And when we make the assessment after 12 months, it's really easy to see the value we've generated and the way we've helped them adjust, bring their people together, understand the role that they have to play in making that technology, create that different result. And to me, this is what's, phenomenal about what this company has done is really that it's not about just technology. It's about technology. It's about the expert that helps you generate the value and the processes. And every mine is unique because every mine has got different maturity level, and you've got to kind of adapt. So back to your question, every site is kind of unique from that perspective because they have different fleet, different process, different team, and so on.
The onboarding, what does it actually look like? What can they expect? What are the conversations that are going to have? What information do they need to get? What team members do they need to bring in? Because that's all part of it. A lot of the onboarding is the challenge. The software can be amazing, but if you don't know how to mobilize your team to do it, it can be very daunting, and you end up with a struggle internally. While they're trying to talk to you, they're struggling when they get off the phone with their own team. And anybody who wants to jump in,
I'll start it.
Sure, Craig.
During the sales process, we're engaging about
Right.
how you're going to have to change your business. We're trying to talk to our clients about who needs to be engaged, what stakeholders are important, change management, what they're going to need to do on their end, right?
So you're sort of laying the framework for them internally.
The sales team lay the framework, they start the conversations, and then we have a very professional approach post-COVID where we've got a project manager or a responsible person who does kickoff, and then as soon as possible we're on site, right? And so it's sending these people that JP was just talking about with 20 plus years experience in maintenance with that credibility that you just can't buy, right? Like these are people who've been there, done that.
So these are mining people.
They're maintenance people. They know how to work their way around the shop, and they know what a kidney loop is.
Mining maintenance.
Specifically mining maintenance. And so they go to site and instantly they get the buy-in that we haven't fully secured because of that credibility, right? So the technology itself isn't hard to deploy. Getting the buy-in, getting the actionability, and then persisting with them, continuing to follow up. To be honest, within 4 weeks we can have everything deployed, and we do that regularly. But it's that ongoing check-in with our clients and the sending people to site that maintains that buy-in over time. So,
I would compliment. Sorry, I like to compliment things, but I would compliment with the fact that through, as Craig said, through the discovery process, we've identified which problems are worth solving. For those problems, we know what solution needs to be applied, including digital, human in the loop, and processes adjustment, and that becomes a bit of the goalpost, right, for us to deliver. But more specifically to your question, what a customer can expect. Typically, like when we start, we will do a bit of a phase approach. So we don't try and boil the ocean. We've got a few modules in our platform. And we know what gives us that 80-20. So we already have a good idea of how we can do it. Obviously, based on the exploration, discovery, we'll have an understanding of which problems are more prominent. So we will focus and tailor the solution to phase it out in a way that it'll tackle those problems. But typically within, I'm going to say 3 to 5 weeks is what a typical rollout will require before we can go live. And within literally like a month and a half, we're go live. We've got, continuous engagement. Maybe Craig, just explain the way we deliver the solution with the service team, the customer engagement model, which I know you're.
Well, funny enough, as you were going through that, I was just thinking, well, actually, we're high grading. So a lot of the folks you're probably interviewing here on the podcast elsewhere, in terms of phasing, we're looking for what is the initial part of a technology deployment where we can get the most bang for your buck and get the return on investment. So cash flow.
That's that 80-20.
That's the 80-20.
Yeah.
So it's funny. I was just trying to link it to all the other folks you're probably talking to today, but. In terms of the services model, look, it's an ongoing engagement. It's a lifetime relationship. As long as that project's active, we're checking in. And so what we do is and this is really unique. Actually, we showed up, having worked at numerous mining technology companies. We arrived on the scene here at Dingo about 3 years ago, JP and I, and I was actually blown away by the high-touch contact points that the technical team here at Dingo have on a regular basis. So the default practice is a weekly condition-based asset health management meeting with every single mine that we do. And you said 120 sites. So we're having, not everyone gets a weekly meeting, but a lot of them we're having weekly meetings with. And that means we know what's going on in their operation. We understand the local or regional specificities or when new equipment are going. And so we do this weekly meeting cadence all year long, right? And that's how we deliver actionability and make sure they understand the insights generated by the solution itself.
And what's important is that the service engagement evolve because the customer evolve. Things become under control. So over time that weekly call becomes a bi-weekly. Sometime it becomes a monthly call. And eventually, when the maturity is to a certain level, we will introduce what we call the condition-based component change, which is essentially extending component life opportunistically. So a customer
that's a formalized process.
It is a formalized
process
within
Dingo that we add as like the next wave of value for our clients, right? So
exactly, so what the service team will do is every 2 weeks they will lead that condition-based component change program, which is meant to extend component life, go from 10,000 to 15,000 hours. When it makes sense, obviously, or the condition, the asset condition meeting, which has to do with really like avoiding premature failure and whatever recommendations were made to the customer that they've accepted, to find out, okay, where are we with this? Make sure we're not dropping the ball. And this is another element that I feel is key, is that it's a closed loop system, in the sense that our system takes the data, analyzes it, the digital tool will generate a recommendation. Our expert reviews the recommendation, makes sure the priority is right, the actions to be taken is right. Then it lands into the customer inbox. The customer accepts or rejects. If he wants, before accepting, he has the ability to look at all the data in a tabular or graphical format, confirm that oil telemetry, okay, all together, that's what it looks like. Yes, I understand. I agree with that. Accept the recommendation. Generates a work order. From there, execution gets done, and we make sure that the problem gets solved. It's not just about generating action, and people, we want to get that outcome where a component in critical state actually comes back after the intervention to a normal state. This is how you get the workload stabilized. This is how you get firefighting mode out of the equation.
Right.
And the outcome for a customer, it's better prioritized activity, but also better plan adherence. So if I'm planning for next week, I will do X amount of hours to do PM, preventive maintenance. I will do so many hours to fix, corrective maintenance. And that's my plan for next week. So what we help them is to make sure that this plan gets executed as close as possible to the plan, and avoid disruption or whatever creates the firefighting mode.
Right.
Again. Yeah. And as new data stream come into the play, for instance, we're seeing more and more onboard customer that bring in onboard telemetry.
Right.
So onboard telemetry, just to quickly go on that topic, will provide you condition health signals, but also will bring in everything that has to do with operator practice. So the usage of the brake pedal, the usage of gear shifting, how hard do you turn when you operate a shovel, the fact that you press yourself on the ground to turn around the house of the all these practice that some of the operation would like to eliminate, that also become an input, so that when you've got problematic pattern and you've got operator practice,
right,
those two can be correlated. And as part of one of our initiative, it's called, internally at least, Operate for Reliability. And this is where those new data stream become very relevant to enhance what AI will deliver. Because when you see a problematic pattern that delivers excessive wear, what was the cause? And how can we actually be upstream and tackle the behavior that created the consequence?
Yeah,
so,
and sooner, and
this is how we want to not solve all the problem that hurt with AI, but this is where we see value will come from.
Where does a client have to be? Do they have to have all their data sets ready? We've had a lot of other episodes talking about how much more data that companies could be gathering on these sites. Where, from a Dingo perspective, where do they need to be in maturity to be able to take advantage?
Yeah. Well, so I think that the question I would answer in two parts. The first thing is, from a data perspective, customer may think that, we're not mature enough to be able to undertake, become a condition-based organization, because we're constantly in a reactive mode firefighting. Actually, I would say that the data prerequisite are pretty basic in the terms of if you're doing fluid analysis every PM, and you are actually making a plan to make intervention on your equipment, you're pretty much ideal customer for us. And from a maturity perspective, whether you're a mature customer or a less mature customer, that also doesn't matter. the result will be different, obviously, and the lever we will pull to generate value will be very different. So from a maturity perspective, this is kind of a trap. Like, there's no maturity prerequisite. The maturity it's an outcome, right? So what we've seen is with site that add a basic ERP system and simple oil sampling, we could already start building a proactive program pretty quickly, because it's about people that execute the process and making, better use or optimal use of this data. Now, what does the result look like if I were to take one of our gold mining customer, Canadian entity that has asset in Canada and in Europe, in the underground mine in Canada, we've seen, numbers in the magnitude of $1.8 million in cost avoidance from breakdown avoidance, and up to $2.3 million in component life extension. So when a component would normally come in and you would expect to replace it or send it for rebuild or whatever, our team would say, you know what, like, this condition is in perfect working condition. According to our global benchmark, you're like at the bottom end of that normal distribution. Like, the average is like 20-30% higher, and some of the better performers are like twice the hours that you're achieving with that component. So that would be an example. Nearly $4 million in savings / cost avoidance over a 2.5-year period. So 1.5 million-ish, kind of return on their investment per year, and that represent like almost like a 3 or 4 to 1 ROI ratio. That same miner, but in their European asset, where it's an open pit mine, and we're not talking big fleet, like under 50 equipment. Okay. That European asset is just over $5 million with a spread of nearly like $2 million in cost avoidance for breakdown that we capture early enough, and recommendation that avoided breakdown essentially, or premature failure, and nearly $3 million in component life extension. Obviously, when you look at open pit equipment, an engine is worth $500,000. Like, when you start extending 20-25% on a fleet of 10-15 equipment, it goes quick. Again, like the payback we're seeing are like sometimes hard to believe. We end up most of the time kind of downplaying them because like customer end up like almost not believing us. But what, it's not just about those savings and that cost avoidance. It's also about how we help them execute better, work on the right priority, and all these non-financial gains they're making about making the team more efficient. Instead of hiring a bunch of reliability, what about making the team that you have in place that already have the context more efficient? From an efficiency perspective, we're seeing like when it comes to analyzing data and making decision, we can shave like from 60 to 75% of what the reliability engineer would spend. Like, imagine if you could give, let's say a reliability engineer spends 15, 20 hours per week to review stuff, and because they obviously do other things. If you could reduce that to like 25%, like, this is a huge gain. Like, some of our customers don't realize that, and what we say is like, yes, sometimes you need to add resource, but like, if you can optimize the time of your people, make them work on the right activity, and just in higher value add activities, this is one lever that can be pulled again in the non-financial. I know Craig is closer to some of our more mature customer. I don't know if
I just want to quickly say that something that stood out to me too is that it's not just about letting things go too long. It's also, you're touching on also, you're maintaining too quickly, and not, you could be spending time and money before something actually needs to be maintained too, right? That can be, so it can, you're coming, you mentioned that at the very beginning of the show, it can come. The savings can come from both sides.
100%.
Yeah, and I did want to, because you talked at the beginning about the more mature customers. I'm going to make a guess that if your system is working right, it's not going to maybe be as dramatic if you've been working with them for 20 years because you've.
That's a common myth I'll bust too. I'd be happy to bust as well.
All right,
so
let's go.
it's kind of picking up from where JP was. I happen to know who the client he's referring to is, and that's a relatively new client with Dingo. So they got immediate value and have had lasting value to the tune of $1 to $2 million, kind of per year at those mine sites. But they're at the beginning of that journey with Dingo, right? They're still learning our systems, embracing the processes that we bring forward, and so there's a journey that we go through with our clients. And so coming back to your question, the longer term clients who have fully embraced Dingo and we've become part of their DNA, I think is how you put it earlier, they capture value on a consistent basis in different ways, depending on the client, but it's perpetual. It doesn't actually, there's no cliff, right? The cost savings and preventing equipment from failing unexpectedly and extending parts components, the ratio of those things change over time, but the magnitude of the cost savings does not. And so even our clients that have been with us for 20 years that were part of their DNA, they're still realizing, in some cases, $5 million plus per site cost savings. And for some of the multinationals who report on all-in sustaining costs, it can be 1% or more for some of the smaller companies against their all-in sustaining cost, the amount of value that we create at Dingo. So, and again, we probably underplay that a little bit because nobody believes it, but we can fully defend what I just said. Like it's defensible, it's captured information based on their inputs. And so I guess the key point is there's a journey from immature to mature, and throughout that process there's value capture in different ways that keeps perpetuating the relationship. This is why people sign up and stay with Dingo for 20 years.
And interestingly, like some people might question, like, how do you guys know about those savings, those cost avoidance? Actually, one detail we didn't talk about is the fact that the system itself capture those savings and those cost avoidance. So it's really easy.
Oh, that is part of the system.
Yeah.
Oh,
So it's really easy at the end of the year for the team at site to look at all the stuff that they've accepted, which and it's not just, like by all means, it's not just a Dingo result. It's a Dingo.
Because they have to accept it.
Yes,
and engage.
Yeah, they're part of the
100%. They're
100%.
like we're an enabler for the team. We're making them more efficient, making them work on the right priority, as we said. But so the point here is that when a recommendation is accepted and a problem gets fixed before it becomes a small problem gets fixed before it becomes a big problem and an equipment downtime, that action is actually captured, and there is a way for the customer to capture what was the cost avoidance linked to that, based on likelihood of this generating, like a failure. And reciprocally, on a component life extension, if you're expecting to do 10,000 hours with a component that's worth $100,000 and you've extended it for 10 or, 10 or 20%, well, it's easy to calculate the savings or the capex, the capex investment you've deferred to later. So those numbers are generally like numbers that the customer will be able to stand behind and say, like, yeah, you help, your solution helped us defer this capital to later, and that's what allows customer to reduce the budget they need to achieve the same work.
And could I add to that, back to this contextual data set that we have? I think we might be the only player in the industry where we can watch observations come in, recommendations be made, and the savings all be tied together in one data set. So think about that from an amazing opportunity to predict the right recommendation that AI should have. AI can look at the entire lifespan of that decision and see which decisions actually led to the biggest results.
Right. In different streams in the operation. Yeah.
That's right.
It's I mean, we could keep going. Obviously, it's such a big topic. But, gentlemen, thank you for doing this. Thank you for it's nice when you get, 3 people. I find these shows always start the first few minutes. It's like you're trying to feel out because there's 3 people on a panel. But then you start digging and feeding off each other, and it's like I said at the beginning of the show. If I could absorb everything that I learn on this show, I'd be the best consultant here. But it's really helpful. Thank you for doing this. I hope we do it again. There was case studies that we could look at. There's so much stuff that we could talk about. But for a first time, I think we got a good snapshot of what Dingo delivers. So thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you, everybody, for watching. As long as it's okay with all 3 of you, can we put your LinkedIn in the description if anybody wants to connect? Okay, so if you go in the description, you'll see each guest's LinkedIn. We'll also have links to their website and specific pages as well that they recommend that people go check out. If you haven't already subscribed to Mining Now, please do. Thank you for watching, and see you on the next episode of Mining Now.